This video is sponsored by Electron.
I've had this, my Tesla Model 3 Performance, for almost exactly 3 years at this point. And I've actually been keeping track of every dollar I've spent, all the maintenance, what's gone right, what's gone wrong, every dollar I've spent charging it, whether it's at superchargers or at home. I have all that data for you guys today. And I wanted to tell you why I think this is the greatest deal in automotive history. So am I right? Am I crazy to say that? Let's find out. I'm Ricky, and this is Stupid Da Vinci. All right, let's start with all the repairs and other unexpected costs that popped up with this car. During a trip to Palm Springs, I was driving back home and I started hearing a thud. It was like a duh, 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 like a kind of a thud sound. And I was thinking maybe a wheel bearing or something else. I was kind of scared. So I pulled over and started pulling off to a little service road. And as soon as I slowed down below 60 miles an hour, it kind of stopped. And I kind of was wondering, okay, what could it be? And when I came to find out is the entire underbody of this car has a fairing. So obviously the battery pack is protected all the way to the trunk. But here in the front, there's actually kind of a fiberglass felt composite material. And that had been contacting, just from hitting bumps or going too fast over speed bumps or something, but it had kind of broken off and it was chipped and flapping. And over 60 miles an hour, the incoming wind was coming in fast enough to push it down hard enough to make contact. Under 60 miles an hour, and it wouldn't. So I called Tesla out to check it out. So it was a mobile operation, a mobile service call. They came and they told me, let's see if we can fix it without having to take it in. If the clamps aren't too bad off, we can fix it. Turned out the damage was pretty bad, and they told me that they can remove it for now, that way it's not smashing, and to come take it in. So if they were able to fix it mobily, it would have been $500, but now that he told me it was going to be $1,500 to repair this piece. But the crazy part is he removed it, the weeks became months, and I never fixed it, and it was totally fine. I saw no degradation in my range or anything else. Now, obviously, that's $1,500 that I eventually might want to do, but right now I haven't done it, but I do need to do it. The second thing is the windshield. For whatever reason, maybe it's just because I've driven 60,000 miles in 3 years, which is 20,000 miles a year, higher than average, but this windshield has been just a chip magnet from rocks and things. So I had one or two, I repaired them, and then finally I had one that just ran all the way down the glass. So I finally called them out to replace it. That happened about a month ago, and that was $934. So $900, Tesla came to my house, they changed the glass, it was all very effortless, I paid in the app, seamless, but that was the first real expense. The second thing was actually probably my biggest regret about this car, and that was the wheels that I got. This being the performance model, it's 1 inch lower, which didn't help with that earlier problem I just mentioned. But the second part that comes with it is those ridiculous 20-inch wheels. Now they look super cool, but I saw literally dozens, maybe hundreds of people on Twitter talking about how they had chipped or cracked or bent their rim from hitting bumps too fast. And that scared me because we do a lot of road tripping to Northern California, about 500 miles from San Diego. And if you cracked a rim on a road trip, you would be stuck. Forget spare tire. I mean, it would just be a nightmare situation. So what I did is I went out and I swapped those out. So I sold my old rims and tires for $1,200, and I bought this. This is a kit from Fast EV. Doesn't really matter, there's others out there. But what's cool is it has an aero fairing package that you can take off. So if you want it to be a little more sporty, you can take these off. I've never taken them off, I've left them on. And now they're 18-inch wheels, which means there's way more rubber. The ride is way more comfortable, and I'm not gonna crack this rim. I don't worry about that anymore. So $1,100 for the rims, $900 for the tires is $2,000 minus $1,200 what I sold the old ones for, that was $800. And then that was around 12,000 miles, and that lasted me all the way to 59,000. I just got these tires last week. These cost $950 or so. So figure these tires are rated for 80,000 miles. If I get even 60 or so, that'll be pretty good. And that's actually not that bad. Pretty normal tire costs. Brakes, I'll never change because it's an electric car. I never use them really. At the rate I'm using my brakes, they'll last a couple 100,000 miles probably. So how much did I spend charging my Tesla between superchargers and at home? I've actually tracked it all, and here is the data. So go ahead and take a look at this. And by the way, while you do, I just realized I got to go meet my friend Adam because he just bought his first Tesla. He's getting a Tesla Model Y, third row. And I promised him I would help him install his home charger.
Like most of my friends, Adam wanted to wait and see how my experience was before going electric, but now he's ready to take delivery of a brand new third row Tesla Model Y in the coming weeks. And I know home charging is a common question. This is the Electron V-Box 48 amp electric vehicle charging station. Level 1 is the traditional outlet you plug your phone into, and it's only good for between 2 and 5 miles an hour based on your EV. Step up to a level 2 charger like the Electron V-Box and you get 240 volt 48 amps and you can charge around 20 to 50 miles an hour. If you have a NEMA 1450 plug like this, installing this is as easy as a few mounting screws and plugging it in. But if you don't, like Adam, you'll want to hire an electrician to either install a NEMA 1450 plug or hardwire this directly to your service panel for full 48 amp speeds. The Electron V-Box has over voltage protection, overheating protection, overcurrent protection, leakage protection, and is IP55 waterproofing certified with really impressive build quality. The nice LED screen shows you what's happening at a glance and you can charge just about every EV out there. Its extra long 22-foot cable makes it easy to charge your car no matter what side you park on. So if you're looking for an awesome level 2 charging solution for your EV, check out the Electron V-Box 48 amp today. Links in the description. Huge thanks to Electron and you for supporting the show.
Now let's talk about charging and how much I've spent and how much I've saved. So I have all the data here and I'll put it on screen so you guys can digest it a bit. But I've spent $2,509 on supercharging at Tesla superchargers. And I've spent $1,104 charging at home for a total of $3,614. Now, that is for 60,000 miles. The car that I sold this to buy was a Honda Civic. Now, the Honda Civic gets about 30 miles a gallon, and that over 3 years would have cost $9,000 to fuel, which is about $5,000 more than this car would have been. And my other car, which is an SUV, gets 17 miles a gallon, would have cost $16,000 to fuel. This would have been $13,000 more. And that is why when my wife has this car and my choices are either wait for her or take the Honda Pilot, I just wait. I do not want to deal with those gas prices. And that car, as a result, I think it has 5,000 miles in the last year or two. Really almost next to nothing. So let's run this all down. New wheels, 1,100. New tires, about 1,000. Sold the old tires, got some new tires, the windshield, and the windshield washer fluid. That is it. And in fact, for the next 60,000 miles, I'm projecting nothing. I'm not going to do anything to the car. I'm just going to keep driving it. I think up until 120,000 miles, there's probably really nothing much to do. Now, if anything wears out or something else happens, I'll make videos and cover that. But right now, that has been the entire operational cost of this car. When you're counting $6 in windshield washer fluid, you know you have a car that really is easy to maintain. And that just isn't true for other cars that are gasoline powered with this much power. All right, so 3 years in, how has the car held up? There's so much talk about Tesla's build quality. And I know you're probably gonna bring up panel gaps. But when I took delivery of my car, it was actually in pretty good shape, I thought. The panel gaps are still pretty uniform. You know, it's kind of like the same throughout. Here's an exception to that. It's really nice and tight here. And you can kind of see it kind of grows there. And then that gap is pretty big, right around here. But it is pretty equally big, I guess you could say. And the rest of it, honestly, the panel gaps are maybe not as good as the highest end cars, but I've seen Audis and BMWs with panel gaps and stuff too. And what really irritates me though, is the idea that like a panel gap equals reliability or build quality. It doesn't. To me, build quality means that it's gonna last the test of time. And if you told me I'm buying a car with 60,000 miles on it, do you want a Tesla with 60,000 miles on it or a BMW or an Audi? No contest. I'm not touching those cars. I've had a BMW in the past, horribly expensive to maintain, not reliable, and to me that's build quality. If you ask me what on this car is gonna go wrong, maybe wheel bearings, suspension, control arms, normal car stuff, but like the motors will never go wrong. They're gonna last forever. How about battery degradation? I almost forgot about that one. So when I first got this car, I was getting about 180 miles of range. And now I'm getting about 260, 265. So I would say about a 15-mile drop in overall range. But the cool thing is these wheels alone add about 20 miles of range on a full tank, especially at higher speeds, like if you're going 80 on the freeway on a long road trip, which is why I kind of switch over to them. But 15 miles of degradation over 60,000 miles is pretty good. Now, if things change dramatically between now and 120,000 miles, I'll cover that. But right now, I think it's right on track. And I mean, no one likes to hear that your car has less range. I paid for this car, now I have less range than when I bought it. But honestly, I think it's well within the reason of what you'd expect. And as this car does its duty, it'll slowly become the in and around town car, and maybe we get a Model X or something for longer trips. The car I really want is the Rivian R1S, and in which case this would be just around town and it wouldn't really matter all that much. But yeah, I think 15,000 miles is okay. It's not bad. So, squeaking. Is there any squeaking or vibrations in the car? No, I've been listening for a while. There's a really terrible road, like all of them in California. Even with these bad roads, there's no vibrations, there's no rattling, which drives me crazy on some cars, but this has none of that. The suspension is also as comfortable as when I bought it. This is a sportier car, and so it's a little bit on the sportier side, but that being said, it's great on road trips, absorbs roads pretty well. Not as comfortable as like a 94 or something, but overall really good. And finally, it's wind noise and just the general noise in the cabin. That's where I think I'd have some gripes. I think the car is good. I'd give it like a 6 out of 10, but it's not great. And newer cars have a laminated glass that are supposed to make it quieter, but this car is definitely not the quietest car. I think if you're comparing it to like a BMW 3 Series, Audi A4, those are quieter cars for sure. But I do think the newer Teslas have improved on that front. Road trippery, is that a word? I don't know if that's a word. Let me tell you why this car has been our stable road tripping car. Now, it's a sedan, not really the best form factor for a road trip, right? Before we had children, we didn't take our Honda Civic on road trips. We took the Honda Pilot because there was not enough room. Here's what makes the Tesla special. First of all, here's a trunk. You've maybe seen them before. They're pretty normal. As far as trunks go, this is a pretty big trunk. It's not bad. But really, the key is this bit right here. So there is an under compartment for the trunk. So this is a standard airline carry-on luggage, and that fits underneath the trunk, which means one airline carry-on luggage, and you still have the entirety of the trunk. That leaves you room for strollers and car seats or any other baggage and luggage and all that other stuff. Plenty of room. But wait, there's more. I wish there was a push button instead of having to go into the car. That'd be a nice little feature. But there is an app as well. But because it's electric, no engine up here, you have a frunk. Now, anyone that tells you, oh, EVs don't need frunks like Volkswagen, the ID4, BS. We have a travel stroller that we always have with us. We don't have to pack it. It doesn't take up room in the main trunk. It sits right here, always ready to go. If we go somewhere, we have a car seat and stroller for our kids. And between that and that extra space up there, this car is fantastic, but it's not perfect. One gripe I have is when there's 2 car seats installed, because of the width of the car, the third passenger has like no room. You have to be super skinny, like wand-sized, to fit back there. Also, it's kind of an exercise in carpal tunnel syndrome to get that seatbelt latch because the car seats just kind of get in the way. Now a Model Y, which I think is an inch or inch and a half wider, bigger, wider cars, they take care of that. You have much more shoulder room for 3 people abreast, which does kind of get in the way. So one thing I do wish that I had is more room, more width in the back. And also, part of why I'm making this video, and this is kind of sad, I didn't really tell anybody before, is we've been debating maybe trading this for a Model Y. Personally, daily driving, I think the Model 3 is 10 times better than the Y in terms of like the driving dynamics, the suspension, the tune. But for a family, it's hard to argue that extra room. And there's a 3rd row Model Y, which sounds like it wouldn't be that practical, but you could put kids back there. I mean, it is actually pretty decent when people come to town. And for that reason, we might go Model Y and trade this in. So I really wanted to do a little ode to this car and share all of our information, what we found with you before we did that. And that takes us to the infotainment system and the software. This is where Teslas are just a cut above. There's nobody else in the automotive industry. There's no one who does software as well as Tesla. Now, the really cool part about that is all the new features that I have now that we didn't have when I bought the car. For example, Sentry Mode, which looks for suspicious activity and records with the cameras outside when you're parked. And also now there's live Sentry Mode where I can go to the smartphone app, open it up, and look at what the car is seeing in real time, which is so cool. There's actually times when I can just pull up my car, because I don't have cameras outside my house to see if there's a UPS delivery or something. Really awesome. Also, you notice that the turn stock cameras turn on. This is a new feature in the last year or so. It shows you the right side out of that camera, and when you go left, you got the other side. That's new. Another feature that they added was automatic headlight high beam, right? So when you're driving on a country road and it's kind of dark and there's no one coming, the high beams turn on. This feature first came out a while back and it was really bad. It didn't work well at all. But over the months and now it's perfect. It's just gotten better and better and better over the air. In fact, I had a recall that I got that said you have a recall, and my wife was like, "What is this? Is there something wrong with the car?" And it was an over-the-air software update recall, and it had to do with the motors for the window controls being too powerful. And so with software, Tesla's able to, feel the resistance. Like if you have your fingers in the window, feel that tension on the motor and stop the window roll up. It was a recall that they fixed over the air. Other than that, I've never brought the car in for any kind of other recall work. Now, before I make it sound like the software is amazing and perfect, it is really great and awesome, but it's not perfect. And every so often, they'll do something to the UI which you don't like. And this is going to happen because Tesla is never going to stop. They'll constantly improve and add new things and shuffle things around. So one of the updates to the UI, they removed the seat heaters, which used to be out here, and now I have to dig into a menu and then turn them on or off. So now what used to be one click is now buried in a menu, right? The glove box has always been a little bit of a quirky thing where you have to hit the button, go in, and hit a button to release the glove box. But now certain things that I'm used to are kind of a tap away. I used to love seeing my efficiency, for example, right here. There were 3 cards you can scroll between to see your tire pressure right below the car, right about here. I love that. You can see tire pressure, scroll over, and there's your trip efficiency, and I use it all the time. Now, if I want to get to that same menu, I have to click one time, trips, and then there it is, but it blocks everything. This used to be a little pop-up window. I'd be lying if I said every single thing they change is better, because it's not. Sometimes you got it right the first time, and it's better to leave good enough alone. But by and large, the software is absolutely amazing. And they even do such cool things once in a while. Juan and I were just talking about this. In the 2022 holiday update, they're bringing Steam integration. So you can play games from your Steam library in your car. That's incredibly cool. That's the beauty of a car that just keeps upgrading, and with everything on the screen, it never feels dated. It feels like a very modern, minimalist cabin. And tomorrow they might have a dark mode or some other UI element that can completely change the feel of your car. I love that. All right, so at the very beginning of this video, I mentioned that this, in my opinion, is the greatest deal in automotive history, which is a bold claim, and I completely understand that. But hear me out. This is a nearly 500 horsepower just muscle car of a sedan. Plus, it's cheaper to fuel and to operate and maintain than a Toyota Prius, all in one package. And that is why I say there's just never been a thing like this. Now, electric vehicles are going to enable this much more commonly, but I think the Tesla Model 3 Performance just nails it on so many fronts. I love the Dr. Jekyll, Mr. Hyde character of this car. In the driving settings, I have everything to aggressive steering, a little more sporty steering, aggressive throttle response, all the settings to sport. My wife has them the opposite. Everything's on comfort. When she gets into this car and drives it, and I'm in her mode, which doesn't happen anymore, by the way, thanks to a software update where depending on which phone unlocks the car, it'll auto pick the profile. That was another over-the-air update that happened. So it doesn't happen as much anymore. But early on, if I was in her mode, I would know instantly. And I was like, no, I can't stand for this. I got to change it to the sporty settings. But for her, it was the opposite. She liked the slower throttle mapping and everything else. This car can be either. If you drive it like my wife does, Prius is a Prius. It's way more efficient, way easier to drive, way more practical and cheaper to operate. And if you want a sports car like this, you could just step on it and have fun on the windy back roads just as easily in one machine. This is not possible with gasoline cars. I'm a huge petrol head. I always have been. Back in the days, I always loved sporty, fast, especially typically Japanese and European sports cars. And one of my favorites was the E36 M3, which I actually had and loved before I got rear-ended and it crashed. But it was a very unreliable car. To eke out that extra bit of horsepower, that engine was just vastly less reliable than like a Honda Civic, which I've also owned. So I've had those two ends of the spectrum. Really high performance gasoline cars, terribly unreliable because you're pushing that engine to its limit. There's just more heat, more work, more load, more fatigue. Everything just kind of wears out earlier and it costs a ton to replace. Then you have the Civic, probably as reliable as this car has been, maybe more oil changes, but it's boring and terrible to drive, right? And that's always been the trade-off. Which do you want? And I think this car is the first time that's not been the case. Look, I'm not going to lie to you. I still get on Craigslist and I shop for manual transmission sports cars. I do. For example, I may or may not currently be looking at a 2013 Aston Martin Vantage, 6-speed manual transmission. Very rare, but I did find one. But my problem is it has to be a weekend car because I don't want to deal with manual transmission after driving this day to day. And that's the thing. If you think of this as an appliance, which some people have called it an appliance, if it is, what an appliance it is, this could be your everyday daily driver. And for that, there's nothing better. No gear shifting, no maintenance, no oil changes. If you're thinking about getting electric cars, what you have to think about is how important is charging to you, because Tesla is the king. If I'm going to drive to the Bay Area and back like I do, and I have, I want a Tesla because I've done that drive and it's effortless and I don't even think about it. But the times I've done it with the Electrify America network, it's been a challenge to say the least. Now they are getting better. All chargers are going to get better, but that's one of those things that will matter to you. And how important is software? How important is the Tesla of it all, right? Those are the kinds of factors that you'll have to think about. But hopefully these numbers and the data of just how much I've spent. I have taken every dollar I've spent on charging, repairs, maintenance, everything, down to the windshield washer fluid, right? So hopefully that gives you guys an idea and gives you a sense of what to look for or if this is something that's right for you. Tesla really has nothing in the way of referrals or anything else, so I get nothing out of you getting one or not. Hopefully this data is valuable to you because a lot of my friends have waited to hear from me before they made this decision. That's why I made this video. And 3 years and 60,000 miles later, I love my car as much as I did when I got it. And that is probably the best thing I can say about it. All right. Thank you guys so much for watching. I'm Rico Da Vinci. We'll catch you guys next week.